So we're going to continue to look at uh, the transatlantic slave trade. Yesterday, we would have looked at the slave trade in Africa. What we're All right, before I go to that question, so what we're going to do, all right, sorry about that. So what we're going to do this morning is that we're going to look at the effects of the transatlantic slave trade on West Africa. So we would have gone through quite a bit about the slave trade in Africa. And yesterday we left, I asked you the question to think about what are some of the effects that the slave trade will have on Africa. And we would have ended the class yesterday looking at a video with Barack Obama at the door of no return. And I'm going to continue to show that video. All right. And then we get into the meat of the matter. Where it is.
Want to pass your certification exams first time? At Exam Labs, we've got you covered. Get all the answers verified by IT experts. Over 1,000 certification exams, including Cisco CCNA, Microsoft Azure, and much more. Sign up for free now at Exam Labs.
This is you. This is your money. You have plans for that money.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, history is more than the path left by the past. It influences the present and can shape the future. We meet today.
Want to pass your certification exams first time? At Exam Labs, we've got you covered.
For centuries, enslaved Africans were forced through this door, became known as the door of no return. Their hands at this point were still bound. They would be loaded into small canoes and taken out to larger slave ships waiting offshore. Once on board, their feet would be shackled, and they would make the long journey to the New World, and many of them ending up in America, never to return. Increasingly, though, African Americans, descendants of slaves, are returning here to Ghana to reconnect with their past and retrace their roots.
This wall tributes our African leaders.
When Imekis Okofu first visited Ghana in 1987, she had no idea the trip would change her life forever. First trip, you hadn't been here probably more than a couple days.
Never, that's right.
And you decided this is it, this is
I knew
home.
it. To have that sense of really being a part of something as opposed to being a colored person in America, going through the things that we went through in America, this was different. This gave me a total sense of belonging.
Imekis and her husband left their home in New York and settled near Cape Coast, Ghana. They built a lodge and tourist service called One Africa. It's estimated as many as 5,000 African Americans now call Ghana their permanent home. For African Americans who move to Ghana, the transition can often be difficult. Many will tell you they feel a sense of home here, but often Ghanaians view them as foreigners. Obruni is a term that people here on the street call me.
Sure, they use it to describe white people.
Right.
But they also...
So they also use that sometimes to describe
Exactly.
You.
And when I questioned
that, did that hurt you?
Of course, I didn't know what it meant. And then when I did know what it meant, and they said that it meant white man and stranger, and I said, how do you call me a white man? It says, because you sound like the white man.
Do you warn folks who just come here for the first time, African Americans who come here, and maybe hope to be embraced in a way, Do you warn them that, you know what, you might get called white man?
Sure. And I tell people, don't take offense.
Tourism has become big business in Ghana. Some 10,000 African Americans now come here every year to reconnect with their heritage. Many make a pilgrimage to Cape Coast Castle, one of several fortresses with dungeons where millions of enslaved Africans were held before being forcibly sent to the New World.
Wow, what this must have been like.
Makiba Clay has been coming here since 1995. She works at Princeton University and brings groups of students here to learn about the history of slavery. For her, the most difficult part of the trip is standing by the door of no return, through which so many enslaved Africans passed before being forced onto slave ships.
All that the slaves went through, the rape, the bloodshed, the deaths, the babies that were born and unborn. And then I think about their final moments, leaving the shores of Ghana. Some who made it, and some who didn't. That's what brings about the emotional aspect.
It was visiting this dungeon where enslaved women were once held that made Imikis Okofu decide to move to Ghana. More than 150 women would be crammed into this room, sometimes for months before being shipped off.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Every time Imikis visits, she prays for the souls of those who died here and those who passed through. It's a painful pilgrimage, but one that also gives her strength. And the pain is what? What is the feeling?
Have you ever had a knot in your stomach? Like something is just gripping you in here. That's what it feels like.
And what about the experience of being in that room made you want to live here?
I don't know. It was something that just came over me. That after I'd gone through that experience, and after I had felt my ancestors, I felt as though people were, putting their arms around me. They were comforting me. They made me know that this was my place and that I had a responsibility in being here. And that I belonged here. That's what it said. It said, you belong here.
I'm glad you feel that you found a home.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Oh, you got that right. You got that right.
There's no war here, no coups, no current example of inhumanity. In Ghana, the story is progress and possibilities. So many people eager for business, eager to elevate their lives and their families. The marketplaces teem with energy. People hoped Obama's visit would somehow bring prosperity. Everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of him. When they learned I'd interviewed the president, they wanted to touch my hand, touch a hand that had touched Obama's. Good things are happening here, and the president came to highlight that, but of course, many still struggle. Ghana is rich, though. There's oil here and development. It's rich, too, in history and music. The culture is alive and strong. We got stuck in a traffic jam caused by a celebration of local chiefs. They were carried aloft, waving to a cheering crowd. An unexpected moment I feel lucky to have witnessed. I'll never forget Cape Coast Castle. The president came here with his family. We walked the castle grounds with him. An extraordinary moment, standing with the first African-American president on the spot where the African experience in America began. At first glance, the whitewashed walls make it look almost pretty, but step into the dungeons, and the horror of what happened here comes alive. Stone walls, no windows, no bathrooms, no escape. Millions of enslaved Africans were packed into these dungeons, and others over hundreds of years. Shackled, kept barely alive, waiting for the ships that would take them to America and the New World. Those who fought back were put into this punishment cell. They were left here to die, their teeth marks on the floor. The desperate, the dying, tried to scratch their way out. Everyone who comes here says the same thing. You can almost still smell the fear, the sweat, the death and decay. The pain is palpable still. It's history, you tell yourself, but the wounds still linger, and we must never forget. Thanks for joining us on President Obama's African Journey. I'm Anderson Cooper in Cape Coast, Ghana.
Do you love Gantt charts? Here's how easily you can build one in ClickUp. Let's map out the tasks for your Gantt chart in this list. Perfect. Now, let's add a Gantt view.
Yes, students, we should never forget. That's a very important part of the interview right there when Barack Obama visited one of the forts in the slave forts in West Africa. Again, please remember that you need to know at least 2 or 3 of the names of the forts on West Africa. So we would have gone through these slave forts already. Now, let us look at the impact, and I want to hear from you. We know for sure that millions of Africans would have left West Africa forcefully, left West Africa to the Americas. So they came all over the Americas. So in fact, you had 3.5 million, over 3.5 million that went to Brazil. The Dutch West Indies, 528,000. The French West Indies, 1.6 million. The British West Indies, which include Jamaica, 1.6 million again. Look over 1.6 million. That's the estimated figure. The Spanish West Indies, 1.5 million people. The British North American colonies, which is along here, and you would have done this in third form, looking at the 13 original colonies, 453,000. It is estimated that almost 15 million people would have left from West Africa forcefully, and they were brought to this side of the world, the Americas, to work in various industries. Now, what were the consequences? All right? What were the consequences of this slave trade on West Africa? If you're going to take 15 million people from this area, what you believe is going to be some of the legacies that is going to be left behind? Come on now, students.
Sir, some of the aspects of their culture will be taken with them from West Africa to the Americas.
1 second for me, please. Go ahead for me.
Sir, I said that some of the aspects of their culture would be taken away from West Africa and be scattered out on the different ports.
That is correct. Correct, yes. So you would have some of their culture being exported, and they will take some of their cultures with them. People travel with their culture. But think about the question, the effects on West Africa. If you're taking 15 million from here, what this side of the world is going to look like. Look on the screen where I'm pointing.
Sir, there going to be a drop in population?
Go ahead for me, Edwards.
Sir, I was saying population decrease.
The population is going to decrease. Yes. Go ahead for me now, Emmons.
Sir, that's what I was about to say.
The population decrease. All right. So it's just the population alone decreasing. Good point. But I need
Sir,
you to think some more. Go ahead for me.
um,
Sorry.
since the Europeans would only take like young and strong people, then the
Mm-hmm.
ratio of young to old would be decreased. So all the young people would be in the new world, while all the old people who could not really carry on Africa as much as the young would stay back in Africa. And so it would be a little bit underdeveloped without any young and strong people over there.
Very good point. Very good. Yes. So if you are taking out all the young people out of West Africa, right, and you're leaving the old, then you know that that is going to cause some form of underdevelopment there. But what else? All of you are on track. Think about it. Effects. Effects. You're looking at West Africa. Just think about it. If someone should, as I said in yesterday's class, if somebody should come to Jamaica and take out, there are 3 million of us living here, and if they take out 2 million of us and send us elsewhere, look at your school, look at your bus, look at the streets, look at the jobs. What would be some of the effects? So now I want you to use that same analogy and look at West Africa and tell me some other effects, because you know the effects. So we talk about population decreasing, right? So that is one. Two, removal of the young people from there that would cause underdevelopment. What else? What about their economy? Morrison,
Yes, sir.
what about the West African economy? What their
Will,
economy would look like?
will decline
It would decline. How would it decline?
because production reduces.
You're going to have reduction in production. Why you would have reduction in production?
There's less working people, sir.
Less working people. So you have less young people there who is of age to work. All right. So that is also going to pose a problem. Someone is saying something in the chat. Oh, yes, I'm recording. I'm recording. I'm recording. All right. So we know for sure that you're going to have some serious effects here. So we're going to go through some of those effects now. Before we go through the effects, as I would have stated early on, you had Africa, which is right here, West Africa. Most of the people, in fact, all the people that came to this side of the world was taken from this region, right, of Africa. The If we look at this graph here, pie chart, I should say, if we should look at the pie chart, over 41% of those who would have left West Africa came to the Caribbean. 41%, the majority. And that's one of the reasons why today in the Caribbean, majority of us are from African descent. Now, just a recap, from yesterday. So the captured Africans became part of what is known as a triangular trade. And as we looked at it yesterday, the route from Europe to Africa is one leg of the trade. This is the first leg of the trade. Could you remind me of two goods that they would take from Europe to West Africa? Two goods.
So guns and ammunition.
Guns and ammunition, very good. So if you, not only guns and ammunition, but they are also taking alcohol, they are taking glass, they are taking shells, they are taking ions, all of these things that they are
Mirrors.
taking. Yes, they are taking all of these from Europe to West Africa. What are they taking on this leg, the second leg of the trade?
The slaves.
What I said about using the
No,
term
the
slaves.
enslaved people.
Very good. The enslaved people. Very good. So they are taking the enslaved people from West Africa to the Americas. What is the name of this leg of the trade? The second leg.
Middle
The middle
passage.
passage.
Very good. The middle passage. And then the third leg of the trade is that they are taking people from the Caribbean to Europe. What are they taking from the Caribbean to Europe?
Goods.
Sugar,
So
tobacco.
sugar,
They are taking sugar, yes. They are taking
tobacco,
tobacco, yes. What else?
Cotton.
Cotton, very good.
coffee,
Maize.
Repeat.
coffee,
You are breaking up.
Rum.
Rum, yes, they are taking back all of these back to Europe. And so this trade is known as the triangular trade. Now the middle passage, we're going to look at the middle passage next week, the experiences on the middle passage. So I'm going to ask someone to read these 4 points for me, please.
Middle Passage, terrifying ordeal. Captive Americans chained together, forced into.
Captive Africans.
Oh, sorry.
Martin.
Captain Africans chained together, forced into dark, cramped quarters below ship decks. Could neither sit or stand. Journey lasted for 3 to 6 weeks. 10 to 20% did not survive.
All right, so that is the middle passage. So we want, before we go into the effects on West Africa, let us look at one enslaved person trying to, who actually wrote about the conditions on the slave ship. May I have somebody volunteer to read for me, please?
Sir, can you pronounce that first word, please?
Which one? Here?
Yes, sir.
Orlando Equiano.
Okay. Orlando Equiano wrote about conditions on slave ship. The stench of the hold was so intolerable, loathsome, that it was dangerous to remain there for any time. The shrieks of the women and the groans of the dying rendered the whole scene of horror almost inconceivable.
Thank you very much, Brown. So if we look at this experience here, we know for sure that the slave trade or the middle passage was not anything that anybody we could wish that on our enemy, right? It was a very horrific experience for the enslaved. And as I said, on Monday, we're going to go deeper into the middle passage. So what now we're going to do, we're going to look at the effects now on West Africa. And so the slave trade would have happened for approximately 400 years. And it is estimated, again, estimated that 15 to 20 million Africans would have shipped to the Americas against their will, right? So that is something that we need to know. Now I've divided the effects under 3 headings. 1, social effects, political effects, and economic effects. Now we're going to look now on the social effects of the slave trade. And one of the social effects that was mentioned early on is that the population is going to reduce in West Africa, significantly reduce, right? Because you're taking out 10 to 15 or 10 to 20 million people. Now, this number that I'm telling you right now is debatable. Some people say it is way more than 20 million people. Some people say it is way less than the figure that we're quoting here. But it is largely agreed that it is around 10 to 20 million people, right? And so if you are taking out all these people, the social effect on the population is that it is going to reduce. What happened in the video yesterday when it comes to that we watched? What happened? What would have been one of the effects?
The families being separated?
Family being separated. So recall what happened to the young lady.
Children
Scared
were
away.
taken away from her?
Children were taken away from their families, right? And so that was also another effect. Not only children, but fathers, mothers were taken away from their families. Uh, and they were separated. So that was a social effect that is taking place on West Africa. So if you can you just imagine the pain for those who have gone, right? So those who were taken away, the pain that they had, and those who remain, the pain that they also had as a result of their families being separated from them. It would have been very, very, very painful. So you could also say, if you are developing this point, you could say that families being separated also had a psychological effect or effect on those in West Africa and those who would have been taken away. Another thing, social effect on West Africa is that if people are kidnapping, right? Other groups, ethnic groups are coming in to raid your community or your village, then it is going to create some level of distrust among Africans. And so there's going to be a lot of distrust between communities in West Africa. People are not going to trust each other. And so the society now is going to be one of the entire African continent, or West Africa, I should say, is going to be one where there's a lot of distrust taking place.
Paranoia?
Repeat? Go
Paranoia?
ahead, Connie. You just break up, Morrison.
Paranoia?
If we could use that term to describe what is taking place between the different communities. Another social effect which we could put under economic effect is unemployment. If you are taking away all the young people from West Africa, then you're going to have in the society a lot of unemployment in the society, because you're not going to have anybody to work the fields, right? You're not going to have anybody to rear the animals. And so there's going to be a lot of unemployment taking place. You have a point, Brown?
So I'm asking a question. Would brain drain be used to describe them as to what happened?
You could use the term brain drain. Brain drain is not only limited to the West, but there was a lot of brain drain that was taking place because a lot of people are going to leave. As this point state, the educated, the skilled persons are going to be taken away. So nobody is going to be there to teach different skills in West Africa. Another social effect that I didn't put on the PowerPoint is that communities are going to be displaced. So remember that they are in which area, which area in West Africa they're at, the enslaved people, which part? Which part of West Africa in terms of the vegetation?
So the tropical forest.
Yes, they are in the tropical forest. And so what is going to happen right here is that people are going to be moved, right? If if other groups are taking them away, villages are being raided, right? All of these things are taking place. Then what is going to happen is that people are going to be displaced, entire communities are going to be displaced, and you're going to try to move inland, way into the interior of the tropical forest. So you have displacement of communities, right? So that is one. Political effects, which is a very sad part of the history, very sad part. So you had many African chiefs who became very, very wealthy as a result of the slave trade because they are selling other people from their tribe and also the other tribes. And they are making a lot of European goods and they are trading these European goods and they are becoming very wealthy. Now, when one tribe infiltrate another tribe, they usually take away their leaders. So quite a lot of African kings and queens were captured. Political effects. So what is happening here is that you're going to have less persons who are there, leaders who are there to guide communities. Communities are going to be leaderless. And can you imagine if your king and your queen was just taken away from you just like that? Who is going to make the laws? Who is going to determine certain traditions? So they had to restructure their political system. And then the next thing is that some African tribes, because they're getting guns and ammunition from the Europeans, they are going to create a lot of terror on other African societies. So now what you're seeing now is that some tribes are going to be so powerful that they are going to constantly use the guns and the ammunition to infiltrate and to disrupt other communities in West Africa. And so these are some of the political effects that is taking place. Now, when you go into the exam, right, and you're looking at the effects on West Africa, I want you to look at it from these handles, right? I want you to look at it from social. So if they should ask you in CSEC and they said to discuss this effects of the slave trade on West Africa, you start out talking about the social effects and give examples of the social effects. And then you give the political effects and then examples of the political effects, right? That is how I want you to answer the question. Now, if you go into the exam and they ask you to talk about two social effects, then you talk about two of the social effects. If they ask you to talk about two economic effects, then you talk about the two economic effects. But if they just ask you a general question about the effects on West Africa, then I want you to answer the question in such a way where you first discuss the social, then the political, then the economic. It will give your paper some level of structure. Now let us look at the economic effects on West Africa. One, you're going to have, as you rightly stated at the beginning, that there's going to be a decline in the production of goods. You just don't go and tell the examiner that there's a decline in the production of goods. You're going to tell them why there's a decline. Because the young and the strong people were removed from the society. And also, European goods would have replaced much of West African goods. So instead of people producing for themselves, they are relying on all the goods coming in from Europe. There's also going to be new trade routes within the interior of Africa that is taking place. And because there's a decline and because a lot of young people would have been removed from the society, then you're going to have unemployment, right? In the society. Next, not unemployment decline, but there's going to be quite a lot of unemployment taking place because people, the industries, people are not there to produce. There's not enough factories there. The agricultural fields were destroyed. When they raided the villages, livestock were taken away. So there was a lot of unemployment. Unemployment would have increased. And also some of the chiefs would have gained a lot of profits, or not only profit, but taxes from the slave trade. So some kingdoms are making money from the slave trade. And so these are some of the economic effects on the slave trade. Anything that you would add to social, political, or economic? All right. Now, so from what we have seen here is that one, we know for sure that the removal of Africans, West Africans from here to here would have had some very serious effect. Both, what is the first one that we looked at? What is the first effect? Category?
Social.
Social.
Social effect. Give me one example of social effect.
Separation of families.
Separation of families, good. Then also we had another category,
Political.
political effects, right? Tell me what about, give me one example of political.
African chiefs became wealthy.
Some African chiefs became very, very wealthy. Give me another one.
Kings and queens were captured due to the loss of, like, when they were fighting in raids.
Very good, yes. So communities were became leaderless or without leaders. The next category,
Economic.
economic. Remind me of one economic effect.
Unemployment.
Unemployment. How would you develop that point?
Because the young and strong people were removed from Africa, so therefore and were removed from Africa, so therefore they didn't have people to work.
They didn't have people to work, all right? But give me another point that would cement it a little stronger. You're correct.
So there were no young people to teach them the skills. So
You could also use that point to develop that point. But remember, when they went in, villages were raided, right? And if you are raiding the village, right, you're going to take out, you're going to destroy their agricultural field. So nobody is there to work the agriculture. In fact, one of the social effects that I didn't mention, and I can't mention all of them, is because is you're going to have food shortage. Because when you go in and you destroy the agricultural fields, you're going to have food shortage in West Africa. And that's one of the reasons why you're going to have people leaving from this part and trying to migrate into the interior of Africa. All right. So these are some of the effects. All right, ladies. So these PowerPoints were already uh, in the Google, we call it the Google Classroom. So work on your worksheet for tomorrow's class, and I need those worksheets on Thursday. All right. Any other question? Any comments? Any question? Any comments? Go ahead for me.
Sir, with the decrease in population, would Europe have a greater control on Africa?
Yes, they would. They had quite a great control on greater control on West Africa. Oh, and this morning we had our head of department, Mrs. Karen Brown Chambers, visiting with us. So Mrs. Brown Chambers, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hall. Good morning, students. Such a vibrant discussion as it relates to the effects. And just wanted to plug that based on the fact that we are descendants of um, Africans, it's important for us to understand how we got here and the impacts that it has on our lives. And of course, I liked the video that was used at the beginning, because you will find, ladies, that a lot of African Americans are doing traces, genealogical traces. So they want to find out where they descended from, who are their specific ancestors, not just that we came from Africa, but definitely who exactly they can be traced to. So I trust that you will use this information to enhance your lives and also to enhance your community. And by the community, I mean your family around you. So as Mr. Hall shared, and brought some knowledge to you, and a lot of it you also contributed in terms of the discussion. Please ensure, ladies, that you make an impact. So in your family, teach them the lessons that you were taught here this morning. Share with them the effects of the slave trade. And I can tell you that when you talk about your lessons that you would have done in class, this is one way in which you're going to cement the information. It's going to become solid in your head. So when you say political impacts or social impacts or social effects, by virtue of you talking about it, you can, with your family, it becomes so much a part of you that when you are to write, it comes and flows from you easier. So it was good being here, and thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Brown Chambers. Ladies, remember to work on the worksheet. All right. And
Sir,
we Go ahead for me.
Are you going to send this PowerPoint? And if so, when?
The PowerPoint is already in the Google Classroom. So you need to check the Google Classroom.
Excuse me, sir. Are we getting any topics from grade 9 on the test?
No, you were not in the class. When we look at the topics that we're getting on the exams.
No, sir.
What are the topics coming on the exam, ladies?
So indigenous people and Europeans.
So everything on indigenous peoples and Europeans coming on the test. And what is the next one coming on?
Caribbean economy and slavery.
Everything that we have done on Caribbean economy and slavery coming on the test.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. So nothing from grade 9. All right, ladies, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir, and same
Bye,
to you.
sir. Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.